Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and my sisters, welcome once again to another episode of Happy Hour live on Jamaicans.com. And I'm so thrilled. I'm honored. I'm I'm always trying to find different adjectives. I'm enthusiastic. I'm
Oh
proud.
no.
I'm proud of the guest that I have on my show today. A very, very, very special person in my life. I'm so excited to celebrate him today. I'm going to invite, and he's shaking the airwaves in the filmmaking industry in Jamaica and abroad. So I want to welcome the one, the only, Mr. Hanif James to the show. Hanif, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Adriana. How am I supposed to do anything when it's that, right? Oh my gosh.
The
No
pressure's
pressure, no
on.
pressure, no
Yes.
pressure.
Well, before we today on this episode, we're going to be talking, as I said, Hanif is a filmmaker, which I'm going to let him give us a little bit about himself. But I just have to say, first and foremost, how I said he's so special in my life is because you're like you're not technically a cousin, but you're like a cousin. You're like a brother to me. We grew up. Our parents, our moms, are best friends. Have been best friends from Jamaica, and
Right.
also best friends. And so subsequently, we and your brother and my sister, we end up growing up together. We'd go to
Mhm.
Jamaica. You'd come. I remember you came to Florida. So
Right.
it's a very great relationship. I've always loved Hanif, and that's why I'm so proud because I'm excited to talk about this because it's like seeing someone grow up and being able to fulfill their dreams. So that's what I see when I see you, Hanif. So just a big round of
Thank
applause for
you.
you.
Thank you.
Well, let me stop talking about you. How about you let the listeners know just a little bit about who Hanif James is?
Oh boy. Who am I? I think I'm still figuring that out, right? I think that's the part of the process, trying to figure it all out. So I am a junior architect, so that's what I do in my day job, and then I write. I'm a director. I love filmmaking. I've always enjoyed it. I love art. I love all these creative things. Photography is something that I fell in love with.
Mhm.
I always wanted to do photography, but everybody was doing it, so I was like, okay, no, I don't want to do that. But then I got a camera and it was the most amazing thing ever. I could not believe what I was missing. And I think one of the values of using a tool like photography was seeing stories in places I never saw stories before, or looking at the human experience, or just looking at people's lives through the lens. It was just fascinating. Um, and then being a part of the Jamaica Photography Society, and being a part of JAFTA, the Film and Television Association here in Jamaica, it really opened my eyes to what's happening here in Jamaica, the stories that people are telling. When I was going to architecture school here in Jamaica, I fell in love with storytelling through architecture, through form, through images, right? We had to do a lot of that, a lot of exploration through form and images, and I fell in love with just what this medium could really do,
Mhm.
right? What it could really express, and so in that process, I wrote a Shade of Indigo. A Shade of Indigo is a story that I felt led to write,
Mhm.
because one, colorism is something that I faced in my family, especially with my grandmother. She would always say anything to a black not good.
Mhm.
Or don't marry anybody darker than you.
Mhm.
And that sort of sentiment was there. And when I heard it from my other friends as well, my girlfriends, girls as friends who would tell me, um, they heard from other guys they don't date black girls.
Mhm.
These kinds of conversations, it really jarred me, and it jarred me because at the time when I wanted to write this story, um, it was Black Panther. It was Wakanda had just come out, and everybody was
Mhm.
talking about the beauty of dark skin on in photographs and in film. And at the same time, there was this disconnect that was happening here in Jamaica. I mean, Black consciousness was at the forefront, but then there was this deep, dark, underlying sense of colorism and really rubbing out your skin,
Mhm.
with all kind of harmful chemicals. And I mean, I was going to Germany to study my master's in architecture, and right, it was an amazing
Wow,
experience to get
I
that
will. How
opportunity.
was that? Those. When did you go?
So I went in 2018.
Okay.
But here's the thing: it's a whole story. I went there, and for the first time, I felt like you experience racism.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh-huh.
oh God, I was in East Germany, so I felt that, and I was Hanif. My name is very Muslim or Islamic, and they were having a lot of um Muslims coming to the country. There's a fear of Islamification, and you could feel it. You could feel it in the air. And my name was Hanif, but I was from Jamaica. I
Mhm.
looked very, so I'm like, no, please, I'm Jamaican, or something. But even then, even just the fact that there is that prejudice, there is that fear, it opened my eyes because in Jamaica you don't really experience it that much.
Mhm.
Other than the fact that people call you Mr. Chin or something.
Yeah. But because you're not dark skinned, you don't have
Right,
that type of feeling in Jamaica necessarily. Mhm.
exactly, exactly.
So
And
sorry,
then,
let us before we start continue, let us just let the listeners know just
mhm,
we're diving into the main topic of your film, A Shade of Indigo. But the main gist of it, I guess we'll just let as we're talking, it is about um colorism. It's the protagonist is a young girl who, I guess, sorry, you tell it. You don't you give us a little gist of
no,
what A Shade of Indigo is.
sure. So A Shade of Indigo is a story about a young girl who is watching her older sister skin bleach, and she's
Mhm.
kind of absorbing all of these hidden messages, but she's also hearing from her mother anything black no good, you
Mhm.
know. This idea that she's too dark and she favor her father. Her father is of course a person in the mother's life who represented somebody who was very bad, very, very, sinister, and of course he was black. So, so she's absorbing all of these messages. And I think one of the things about this story is, what does a child experience when hearing things like this?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's really what it is. Yeah.
And
And this is gonna make it pretty quicker. Now that you did one. If you're too black in this country, nobody not see you. Best thing, I start them early with the bleachings.
What it is. Yeah.
and I'm after watching it, I didn't know what I didn't know what to expect. I had seen you had been doing the film, and I'd seen little bits and pieces on social media, but I wasn't sure really what to expect when I watched it. But I was very happy. Happy is not the word, but I'm glad that that was the main topic of your film, discussing something that I agree in a way. I think it's so crazy that in Jamaica, a place that is, out of many one people, that colorism and skin bleaching would be such an issue in that country. In Jamaica and in black nations around the world. Um so I'm glad that it is a topic that you brought up. So you were saying that it was something that touched home because you were in Germany, so you were kind of on the other end of the
Mhm.
spectrum. You're in a white nation and
Feeling
you're
that,
a
yes.
black man. Hmm.
Right. And it's interesting because I would talk to my Jamaican friends who were black there, and they would say things like they felt exotic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? So people would want to touch their hair or things like that. But for me, it was like, scowling or, very, very, uh, very serious behavior that you
Mm-hmm.
could feel from other people, very, very heavy presence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for me, that was one thing. But I think it started conversations about another thing where I was leaving my home country to find better opportunities abroad, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to better myself, and I didn't feel that I could do that here in my home country. So I left, right? And a lot of people follow that same trajectory where, they go abroad, try to find a better life. And then the question is, well, why couldn't it be better here in Jamaica? What is holding us back from building it? And I felt that when I was in Germany, you feel that ostracization because of your skin color now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's that same question, well, what's happening in Jamaica about with skin bleaching and things like that? How do people feel in a predominantly black country where you're having colorism, black people against their own selves,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, how do you create an environment that fosters growth, fosters development when we finally found a way to celebrate our identity fully in a mature, sobered way. And that was something that I think really got my gears going. But it was when I what happened was in Germany, I decided I'm gonna go home.
I don't want this anymore.
And then I'm thinking I'm gonna go back home and I'm gonna see what does home have to offer. So
Mm.
I'm going back home, and in order to run away, I had to go to New York first and then come to Jamaica. So I went to New York, stayed with some family, and while I was there, I was going to the airport and I saw these skin bleachers, and I'm standing in the line and they just decided to cut me,
Mm.
right? Cut
Mm.
me
How
off,
dare they?
in the line. I'm looking at them. I'm like, what? It's skin red,
Mm.
skin red,
Yeah.
and they're bleaching. And I'm thinking, but can you really blame them? You
Mm-hmm.
know, can
Mm-hmm.
you really blame them when they are manifestations of something very dark?
Yeah.
In the country. So I thought about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point that you bring up is, can you blame them, right? When or if you see on the internet, you see people skin bleaching, we have the tendency, right, to be like, oh my, like, why would you, it doesn't even look good, why would you do that, like, why would you do that to yourself? But like you're saying, they're just responding to the messages internally that they're receiving. So if they consistently see and hear people saying that anything black is not good, or I don't date black girls, or I don't date black men, or you know everyone, and even not in within the country, within social media, everywhere. I mean, even in the United States, we have that, red bone, uh light
Right.
skin, I want mixed babies, I want good hair, the good hair conversation. So, when we see people skin bleaching, or women wearing wigs and weaves consistently, when we see them getting bo- Brazilian booty lifts,
Yeah.
and we blame them, it's
I
because
was
they're
saying
just
that.
responding to what the message is, that what beauty is, which is sad.
No,
Very
I
sad.
agree. I agree. I mean, my great grandmother was a very dark skinned woman. She was
Mhm,
black, and her daughter, my grandmother, came out much fairer.
mhm,
And there was this. I mean, always growing up, there was always that thing with my grandmother. It's like she dissociated herself from her own mother.
mhm,
Because of her very dark skin, and growing up, you could feel that there was always that discussion about skin. Don't marry anybody darker than you. Anything black or good. And I mean, I felt that in my own family. Can you imagine what they're feeling when, one, you can't get a job if you're not of a certain complexion, but
mhm,
two, this idea that being of a lighter complexion allows you to have access to upward social mobility.
mhm,
So it it's a very, very dangerous thing, and at the same time, there is also the media. There's the music and the dancehall culture, and you're trying to make your skin pop when you put tattoos on it. So it starts to shift. When I had conversations with someone who's skin bleached, she was saying that it's not that she's dissociating from her black skin. It's just a fashion. It's just a style. Like if you're changing your hair color, or you're putting on a different shade of lipstick. It's just that kind of a fashion. And at the same time, having that sort of conversation, you really don't. What we're not talking about, or what I'm getting from a lot of the conversations, is that there's a lot of deep rooted pain and trauma, deep rooted pain and trauma that is not necessarily isolated to dark skin or light skin or the colorism that's there, but a deep rooted trauma that has a lot to do with a lack of celebrating who we are,
Yeah.
not just as black people, but me as a man, somebody as a woman. What does it really mean to be who we are? And when a parent tells you you're not good enough, it doesn't really matter what that thing is, but that parent, you're not good enough, you'll never be somebody. This negative self-talk that comes from our parents, that has this vicious cycle in generations. What is it doing to our psyche, and what is it doing to our conversations? More importantly, what is it doing to the urban fabric that we're building in Jamaica in particular? So
Yeah.
it's a definitely a layered conversation.
And I think because it goes back from so many generations, as you were saying. I think it has a lot to do with it's that colonial mindset, right? Can you imagine our ancestors who came from Africa through the slave trade, landed in Jamaica, the Maroons, or even the Tainos who were on the island originally. Like, when you're stripped of your roots, right? It's a people who are brought from their own country and stripped of their names, stripped of their identities, and the colonial, I can only imagine, right? The colonial taskmasters are just, it's just colonial. So I don't even want to get in history because I don't even know it that well, but that reiteration of, okay, you are just a slave, you're nobody, you don't, I disconnected you from who you are. And a people now trying to form their own people. So the Jamaican people now just forming their own people, but still having that mindset that, okay, I like I how do I describe it? I hope it's making sense. Like, it's making, like,
No, it does, yeah.
even in the United States, like, when you beat down a people so bad and for so long about their skin color, and about who they are, their skin color, their hair type, saying everything about them is wicked, everything about them is ugly, everything about them is not right. And it's just that kind of mindset. I think it's still lingering, even though slavery is done, it's abolished, even though each man is free, right? But who says it best? Bob, we're gonna quote you, Bob Marley. You have to emancipate yourself from that type of mental slavery,
Right.
but which goes back, like you're saying, the layers. If your family or your mother or your grandmother, your father is reiterating this to you, someone who's supposed to be or anyone in your life who's supposed to be that nurturing person to build you up and let you know that you are beautiful, if that is missing, and then so from your family that's missing, in the world they're not gonna, so I saw this video actually recently. I laughed at it because it was funny. The little girl in it was funny. It was a little Jamaican girl, and she was talking to her mom, telling her about something that happened at school. And she said, "You remember the boy who didn't like me, but him didn't like me? Yeah, he said, why your mother so black?" But she was so, like, I laughed because she was so dramatic. But she said,
Dramatic,
"Why your mother so black?" And I said, "But my mother not black." And here's the mom, she black. She said, "But me black for true."
Right. I
The
know.
daughter's like, "What? Me
Never wait.
know say you're black, but me just want me don't want to think you're that black." Like,
Mm.
so it's conversations that are happening constantly, I can imagine, in Jamaica and the US. Now, so you this was the main then your time in Germany, you were saying, also kind of sparked and helped you kind of create the storyline for A Shade of
Mm.
Indigo. Um so how long, like, what was the process? So you got the idea, you wrote it. Now, how did you come about making it into a film, one, and then also being featured on film festivals, winning first place at film festivals? How did you take us from the process of having the idea to where you are now?
Sure. It's a long process. This is a 10-minute short film. It's short, but it took me 2 years to write this. I mean, one, I'm a man writing a story about Black women,
Mm-hmm.
right? You gotta get this right. You
Yeah.
gotta get this right. And one of the things too is talking and sharing and really doing rigorous work with my producer, Sonia Batson Savage, who is also the script editor. We worked so tirelessly on this, and Alisa Chapman, who is also the co producer. And, we had some serious conversations about what exactly is the focus of this story. This story went through so many iterations. It's not even funny. And I think the thing about it is, one, I initially pitched this for a pitch competition through it was the Greater Augustine Film Festival, which we call GATFest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I won,
Okay.
right? And right, but for several reasons, because what happened is that was during COVID, a lot of different reasons. I could not make the film, but
Mm,
God has a way. Everything in His timing, right? So
amen.
I continued working on it, developing it, and I submitted it. It was Annalisa Chapman who suggested to submit it for Propeller. So JAFTA, Jamaica Film and Television Association, has their Propeller initiative, which allows Jamaican filmmakers to submit their ideas for a script, and they will help in making it a production,
Mm-hmm.
right? So by the grace of God, I submitted that, and lo and behold, I was selected, and we went through this serious process. One part of the process was having to do a table read.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the table read with my script, and we got some feedback from the audience. Questions about the mother, questions about the story, questions about the impact. That's one, and then two, we had people who taught classes. Um, they gave classes on production. We had Jane Richardson, I believe. We had Ulrich. We had so many different people who were a part of the process to help us develop the project throughout it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's pre-production before it goes into production. So usually we have pre-production,
Mm-hmm.
production, and then post-production,
Post-production.
right? So pre-production is something I believe in for sure. Get everything done in pre-production so that production works smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
So writing is a part of pre-production. Mood boards. I worked with Gabrielle Blackwood, an amazing Jamaican cinematographer, and she's also an incredible woman, an incredible storyteller. And I shared my images with her. We had conversations about what works, what doesn't work, which angle is going to help tell that story. Everything has to come back to the narrative. So
Mm-hmm.
that was one thing. And then after that, we would submit it to the producers, and the producers, of course, would bring us back to reality because we are in within a budget, right? So
Yeah.
Propeller, when you want it, we got a budget, and we have to stay within that
But
budget.
yes.
So every time I would, talk to Tanya, my producer, and bring her, all of these ideas, she's like, "How does this work?" We don't
Let me
have
pull you down real quick.
this kind of money. So, of course, and I learned the value of working within your restrictions,
Mm-hmm.
because once you do that, you find ideas that come out a little bit more. So that was a part of the process. Um, and we also, we got sponsorship from from the Ministry of Tourism,
Oh,
Ministry of Culture. Might have to snip that out. I don't know.
yeah.
We got sponsors.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people pitched in. I think it was Far Films and Phase 3 Productions. They helped with film equipment and various things to help offset costs. By the grace of God, I had a property that one of my family members had owned, and it was a very derelict home in Midtown Kingston. So it was perfect for the location, perfect for the story, that everything, the colors that I had imagined. So
Wow.
that's
I mean,
another
just
thing too, right?
colors.
Yes,
Because
you saw it in the film,
yes, yeah, because I was like, oh, this is I kind of like this house a lot. Like I'm waiting to like
right?
look around the corner. Yeah, it was the house was perfect for I think the film. Mhm.
Nice. That's another thing too. I wanted a lot of movement and for it not to feel very static. It's a short film, so it doesn't feel a little dynamic in
Somewhere.
some way. We got to put that in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at colors, we worked with Charles Baker. She's an incredible wardrobe, trying to figure out which clothes work best for the mood, for the atmosphere, and everything just came together. Set design, um, done by Demi, uh, and once we got through that hurdle, then we went into production. So production now,
Mhm.
um, we had several different people as a part of this team. We collaborated, spoke to different people. We went in there, had our schedule, and I mean, this is another thing too, right? You have all of these big plans, but one scene I wrote had to be taken out completely.
Oh
Had to
no.
be taken out completely because we just did not have the time. And
Mm,
and looking at that, we started to realize that taking out that scene did not detract from the story, right?
mhm, mhm.
So it's interesting because editing is such a great part of the process, and we don't necessarily mean post production editing, but editing as in the process of taking and removing and adding things that are
Mhm.
necessary for the value of the narrative.
Yeah.
So that was something that we did, and some a process that we were very appreciative for. And one of the things that I should also mention is that in pre-production, I went downtown and actually took photos of skin bleaching. How in the street people are actually using it for like doing hair and all of
Mhm.
these things. And it was such an incredible experience because you're starting to see just how much the environment is also playing a role in
Right.
the process too. The street in itself becomes an urban salon. It becomes
Mhm.
a place where people are painting toenails and painting hair and doing all kinds of things. And they're having conversations, and they're also having these conversations right next to skin bleaching equipment. And
Mhm.
and I took a photo, and one of the photos there's actually rat poison right next to the
The
bleach,
teaching.
right?
Wow.
It was such an incredible irony,
Mhm,
right? This
mhm.
poison right next to the bleaching. But all of that to say, it came into the story. It didn't just happen overnight. It took some time, took some funding, took a lot of collaboration. A lot of people put their efforts into this story. And one of the greatest achievements I think from this is that the cast and the crew not only got to share their expertise and their talent, but we got to celebrate it with all of these awards, especially the lead actress, Lauren. She is incredible. She really she knocked it out the park with this
Yeah.
one. She's six, and I mean,
How old is she?
she's 6 years. She was 6 years old
Wow.
when we did it, right? And she
Wow.
fit. She fit the right. It was
She,
incredible. She's
I mean, so
professional,
natural. Like,
right?
yeah.
Natural, and it also goes to show you that here in Jamaica we have the talent, we have the people, we have the knowledge and the expertise. One of the things I do think we need to push on is storytelling and
Mhm.
figuring out how to tell really valuable stories in a way that goes through that process, vacillating back and forth from editing and also figuring out the why. Why is
Mhm.
the story so important and what is driving the narrative? So
Mhm.
all of that to say it was a lot of work.
It was like yeah, I can only imagine. But
Um,
like you were saying, I think even when you were saying you went downtown and you took the pictures before you went into the full editing process, and just to even see your storyline in real life, right? In real
mhm,
time, happening right before your eyes. So seeing how necessary that this story is at a time like this, to tell this story. Um, and sorry, let the listeners know, I want to let them know where your film is being shown, or let them know what festivals and the awards that you've won from this film. We got to big you up a little, let them know.
oh, oh, thank you. Well, I mean, it won some awards. It won some awards in Grenada. It won awards in Cannes, in France, at the Diverse Teen Council Festival. It won here in Jamaica for the Greater August Film Festival. And we also got special mention in Guadeloupe. Right, all of these countries. Now it's being shown through the Barbados creative platform, which is Fresh Milk. It's being shown in Poland, in Barbados, and it was previously shown in other countries. Ghana was one of them. So, so it's been shown around. We got awards for best breakthrough performance for Lauren. We got best first time director. Right. Can you believe it? Imagine it.
I
What
know,
God
right?
do it? What God do it? And then we got best screenplay. So just really grateful for that. And Gabrielle Blackwood won for cinematography at
Oh,
I believe it was the Black River Film Festival,
wow.
which is
Okay. Oh,
another film
Black River
festival
in
going on
Jamaica.
there in Jamaica. Yeah, so the Black River Film Festival um, is another one that it just recently started having screenings here in Jamaica. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that people often ask though is how do you get into these festivals? So the festival circuit usually, you can apply to platforms like Film Freeway, submit your film. It does have a fee for some of them. Some of them have fee waivers. But once you get in, it's a great opportunity to share your film, meet filmmakers, um, and that's the platform we've been using. But another thing too is word of mouth. Like once it started getting that kind of traction, I mean, people have been messaging and
Mhm.
asking how they can share the film. So yeah.
Yes, and I mean, congratulations to you,
Thank you.
to
Thank
the
you.
entire team. You've mentioned time after time that it's definitely a team effort, and all the people who have kind of helped guide you to get you to where you are now. So just like, yeah, so proud of you for pursuing what you love. As we said earlier, for me, I know even as we were young, it was you and I who were always into creative arts, right? Like we were always
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
dramatic ones.
Genetic was right.
Drama. So I know to see how the creative arts is so prevalent in your life, and even as you were saying earlier, even with your engineering work, how you look at that, or not engineering, it's is that the word?
Architecture.
Architecture, yes, yes, yes. How you're
Right.
able to even incorporate and bring out the creative arts in architecture, in film, in drama, and storytelling. So just super proud of you. I guess we'll as we wrap up, we'll ask, what even because I knew you when you were young, but only you knew what was in your head. What hmm, I guess did you ever envision yourself being a film, like when you were a kid? What did you envision yourself doing when you got older? Is it this?
Oh my gosh, it was not this at all. I thought I was gonna be a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Gonna be a doctor or something. Um,
Follow
right?
from
Or something. I mean, when I was in high school, I wanted to do art. I knew that for sure. But everybody was like, "If we don't make money off of that, I
that.
still
That's
don't know. I'm
yeah.
learning."
Like,
but
that's what you have the
but you gotta
architect.
try. You gotta try. Which is why they put me in architecture, right? Just go do that.
Yeah, yeah. But you gotta try.
But it's interesting because even though I started out in architecture, it branched out. I found myself in other areas and learning. And I think something I would say though, there's a lot of people who would say they don't necessarily believe anymore in the value of things like a bachelor's degree or going to university anymore because it's so expensive. But if you can find an opportunity to get access to education in whatever form it's in, it's so valuable. One of the things that I am learning and continue to learn is that film in particular is an art form, and as an art form, it must be you have to pursue it as an art.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite inspirations is Roger Deakins, and Roger Deakins is an incredible cinematographer, and he's done incredible films. But one of the things that he started out as was a painter. He started out,
Mm-hmm.
so as a painter, he's learning how to mix colors. He's learning how to sketch. He's learning how to create forms on paper and learning, composition. All of those things led him to where he is today. So it's not necessarily to look at where you start, but where you end up, right? Where you end
Yeah. Amen. Well, I'm glad you brought so because primarily Happy Hour is a gospel based program. So I'm always glad when we can then tie the stories and the interviews back to purpose and back to divine
up.
purpose. Because I always talk about this on the show. That each and every one of us are designed and we're built for a particular thing. God gives us talents and giftings in each and every one of us, and it's up to us throughout our life, right? When we say we're figuring it out, right, it's us unveiling and learning more and how to use these gifts for his glory. And so, like you said, it's not where you start, right? It's where you end, and it's as you just keep on going and trying, right? Like if you allowed what people to say, oh, you're never going to make money as an artist or this, like if you allowed that narrative to stop you, you would have never known that you could be an award winning filmmaker, right? Like that you could have that under your belt, and that this is just the beginning. Is it just the beginning? Do you
Oh,
have
I
anything under
agree. Yes,
your are you
yes.
working?
Well, I'm here writing a storm. I just need money. I just need fun. Give us
Jano.
no, right? Listen, Lord, you gave me this purpose. Let's see.
You gotta fund it, Lord. You gotta fund it.
Gotta fund it.
I'm saying the same thing. High five me on that, baby. I'm saying the
That's right.
same thing.
Yeah, we
He'll
need,
do
we
it.
need, we need money. We need money.
It need money. It take money, but he'll do it. And like even your story, I'm glad this. Even you telling us the process of how it. It was a difficult, long process, right? 2 years
Mhm.
in the making, and just so many difficulties, so many hurdles. I can imagine. I know you just gave us the short synopsis, but I can only envision the amount of hurdles in real life that
Mhm.
you had to overcome to get this film done. But I'm just glad to see that you've seen the fruits of your labor and that you're seeing the return, that it's also a message that is ringing home with people around the world, right? Because it-
Mhm.
this message of colorism, it doesn't start and it doesn't end in Jamaica. It's a worldwide thing that people of color are experiencing. So for you to tell their story, from a little island, but it's expressive of the world, I think is very, 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 very amazing and very timely. So congratulations again, Hanif James, filmmaking award winning director and producer. Woo, sound nice, eh?
So nice. That's right. That's right. They must give me money.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Well, okay, so as we wrap up, I know we've said that the film is available in different filmmaking outlets. But how can the listeners, they've heard your story, you've sparked their interest about the film. How can they follow you either on social media, to stay up to date with your film, or to maybe one day be able to view it themselves? How do they get in or how do they stay linked with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my Instagram handle is I am Hanif James. That's right. I am Hanif. I have to think
I
about it.
am.
I am Hanif
Yeah.
James. So that is my Instagram. So you can find information there. You can also find information on the Have a Ball Instagram page. So it's Have a Ball, BAWL. So yeah, that's how you
Perfect.
can. Yeah. One thing I would also say though is that even though this story is about colorism, I think for me it's also about parents
Mm,
who have to learn to unpack their own trauma so that they're not passing it on to their kids.
amen.
And that's a lot of work.
Whew.
And it's the kind of work that that requires you to really humble yourself. And I'm grateful that you mentioned that this is a show that recognizes God and recognizes the value of that, because honestly it was God for me. God has to break down some walls for me.
Amen.
And it's also in that process that you begin to develop an understanding of where your own traumas are.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that connects us
Yeah.
together. The humanity and the unity that needs to come together. We're bonded in our pain, but
Yeah.
we're also bonded in our joys.
Amen. Amen. It's so true. Each and every one of us daily are facing daily struggles or daily victories. We each have something going on in our lives, that a mountain that we're facing or something that we're dealing with. And you said it right. Hell, we're gonna encourage y'all now. If you
Yeah.
are experiencing trauma, or if you are someone who is holding a lot of baggage, a lot of pain, whether it be from something someone did to you or your family, or what words have been said, words that have tore you down. Even for me, it's God who broke down those walls, who broke down those mindsets that pulled people down, those traumas. So, I want to encourage, and also on behalf of Hanif, to encourage every one of you to seek a personal relationship with God, because He's the only one that really can heal you. He's the only one who can heal any pain. He can heal any hurt. The only one who can heal any anger that you may be holding in. And especially now we've seen. Sorry, this is but this is great. I'm glad we came to this.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
many people are dealing with mental illnesses right now, anxiety, depression. It's so much that I didn't even know. So many people are dealing with it, even children. I'm working with children
Yes.
who are at schools yelling, screaming, throwing desks. I've had students hit me who are going through so much. And as you said, Hanif, it also starts from home. It starts from your environment. So, whether it be, finding, if you have insurance, or if you can't afford to see a therapist. I know a lot of, and I think also,
Yes.
Hannah, it's our generation, right? We're
Yeah.
open to it.
We're more open. Yeah.
Because you go to the baby boomers, and parents, so our parents and their parents grew up in a time where it was just not acceptable to
Yeah.
say your feelings or express. A lot of them are still so bottled up, right? So we just want to encourage everyone, seek, if you can seek, therapeutic help, but mostly the biggest help you can find is God. If you're dealing with feeling selfless, right? Maybe skin bleaching, people will skin bleach because within themselves you don't feel worthy, but we want to remind you that you are fearfully and you are beautifully created in the image of God. And if He made you black and dark, it's because He wanted you to be that, because He saw you beautiful like that. If He made you light and fair, that's how He wanted you to be. If He gave you, if He gave you dry hair, if He gave you silky hair, God makes
Mhm.
no mistakes. So we just want to encourage everyone. I'm glad we got this, because I think this is something someone needs to see or hear. You are
Yeah.
beautiful just the way that you are. Women and men alike, young girls, young boy, you're beautiful just the way you are. God created you to be exactly the person that you are now. And then He's given everything that you need is already inside of you. So just begin to develop that relationship with Him, that personal one-on-one relationship, and He will show you who you are. He will guide your steps. Look at Hanif's story. He didn't know how this film was going to come together, but lo and behold, God put people in the right place. As long as you're willing to surrender and have that relationship with God, He will guide you, and He will make sure that that you're beautiful and everything. He doesn't make mistakes. Amen.
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 Sando,
Amen.
glory.
But, but so I'm glad. That's a great ending. I'm so glad. Sorry, I know I took over that, but I just wanted to get the message out. But is there
No,
anything else you wanted to say along those lines before we wrap up?
No, sure. There was one other thing. There's a lot of this kind of conversation, right? Where okay, this film is about colorism, and that's the point, or it's
Mhm.
even just about the way we picture ourselves. But I definitely think that there's a when we don't appreciate our identity, regardless of what that identity is, I do find that there is this nefarious thing that comes after us. It's trying to steal our voice.
Mhm.
More importantly, the thing that is within us that wants to say something and say something with power, conviction, and something of importance,
Mhm.
meaningful importance. And the moment we abdicate, the moment we give up our voice because of all of the pressures, the mounting pressures of our trauma or the mounting pressures of our family history, whatever it is, we give up the thing that we really have.
Mhm.
And that's
Yes.
what we say to others to help them to improve. And it's also improving me because
Mhm.
this process is a process, writing, making films, painting, any kind of creative thing. It's something that really searches your soul, and you have to be vulnerable to search your
Mhm.
soul. So
Man.
that's all I want to add to that.
Amen. Amen. Well, I so thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Mm,
I'm so glad. Thank you for
thank
taking time
you.
to come on this show. Once again, to you and your entire team, just so proud of you guys. And I know even greater things are to come for you. And I'm just so proud of you. And I look forward to seeing you soon. We got to make that
Yes,
happen.
right. Make that happen.
Gotta make that happen. But thank you so much. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow Hanif on social media at I am Hanif James, and you can
Yes,
also go to at Have a Ball on Instagram. I'll make sure to add it at the bottom. But Hanif, thank you so much for your time tonight.
yes, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity for sharing.
Yeah, of
I love it.
course. Of course. Of course. Ah.